In 1957, a machinist in Youngstown, Ohio, came home from a 12-hour shift and found three things wrong: the sink draining slowly, the back door dragging, and a chair wobbling loose at the joint. He fixed all three before dinner: a bent coat hanger, a folded matchbook, and a candle stub from the drawer below the stove. 22 minutes. He did not look anything up. He did not call anyone. He ate dinner at 7, and none of those problems came back. The man who lives in that house today paid a plumber $180 for the drain alone. He did not think of himself as skilled. He thought of himself as a man who handled things. In the 1950s, every father on every block fixed what broke, because walking away from a broken thing was not acceptable. That standard is gone, replaced one service call at a time by the message that your hands were not qualified. They were. They still are. The knowledge your grandfather carried is not lost. It is sitting in a toolbox that has not been opened in 20 years. Number 22 stops a hinge that has been screaming for 2 years, using something already under your bathroom sink. Number 14 held a cabinet door square for 19 years with nothing but a scrap of wood and one screw. And number 4, the fix every American father handled before noon on a Saturday, now runs between $400 and $800 when you call a professional. He did it in 40 minutes. Before the game came on, these 30 tricks were not about saving money. They were about never needing to be saved. A man who could fix his own home answered to no one's invoice. That self-sufficiency has a price now. It is printed on every contractor's bill for work your grandfather handled before breakfast. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 30 lost repair tricks every father knew in the 1950s that could save you thousands today. Number 30. Silencing a squeaky floor with talcum powder. You marked the creaking board and worked talcum powder into the seam with a stiff card until the squeak stopped. No tools, no subfloor access. For a family with a baby in 1953, a squeaky floor at 2 in the morning was a genuine household problem, and the talcum was already on the bathroom shelf. Free. 3 minutes. A squeaky floor is not a structural failure. It is a gap that needs filling. Number 29. Shimming a door that drags on the floor. You slid a cedar shim under the hinge side corner and tightened every screw in both hinges. If a hole had stripped, you packed it with a matchstick dipped in wood glue, let it dry, and drove the screw again. In a busy household with 3 children, a dragging back door was a daily frustration. The fix took 5 minutes and a screwdriver. The door did not need a new frame. It needed a man who noticed it. Number 28. Patching a plaster wall with newspaper and joint compound. You dampened the hole, pressed torn newspaper strips into it in overlapping layers, letting each layer dry before applying the next, then finished with joint compound, smoothed with a wet putty knife. An old Chicago plasterer called it the poor man's lath. Properly layered newspaper provided the same mechanical key as wood strips at a fraction of the cost. The newspaper was not a shortcut. It was the structural answer. Number 27. Stopping a running toilet by bending the float arm. You lifted the tank lid and bent the metal float arm downward with both hands until the water shut off at the correct level. No parts, no service call. In 1955, a running toilet was a float set too high, and every man who had looked inside a tank once knew the correction in 10 seconds. He did not fix the toilet. He bent a wire and went back to bed. Number 26. Reglazing a window pane with linseed putty. You cleared the broken glass, primed the bare wood with linseed oil, pressed glazing compound in with your thumb, and drew the bevel to a clean 45 degrees with one steady pass of a putty knife. Window glaziers charged $3 a pane in 1950. The compound cost 30 cents. A man who kept a can of putty set his own windows. The glass was replaceable. The hands that set it are not. Number 25, fixing a dripping faucet with a leather washer. You shut the supply valve, pulled the stem, cut a disc from an old leather belt, the same diameter as the valve seat, and pressed it in place of the failed rubber washer. Drip stopped. In 1953, no man with a water bill permitted a running faucet. The leather cost nothing. The fix took 4 minutes. Not a plumbing job. A decision not to waste. Number 24, straightening bent nails on a flat surface. You held the nail against the back of a vise and tapped it in light passes with a hammer, rotating a quarter turn between each stroke until it ran true. A Depression-era carpenter in Pittsburgh kept a coffee can of bent nails on his bench and straightened them in batches every Sunday evening. The nail had not finished its job, not waste. A resource that had not yet finished its work. Number 23, fixing a wobbly chair with a matchstick and wood glue. You pulled the loose joint apart, pressed a glue-coated matchstick into the dowel hole alongside the tenon, and clamped the joint with a rope loop twisted tight with a stick. The matchstick filled the gap that daily use had worn into the wood. For a family eating 3 meals a day at the same table, a wobbly chair was a point of household pride. He did not replace the chair. He refused to let it fail. Number 22, silencing a squeaky hinge with petroleum jelly. You tapped the hinge pin up, coated it with petroleum jelly from the tube under the bathroom sink, and tapped it back down. Gone. Completely. Every man in 1950 understood that friction between dry metal surfaces makes noise and that any thin lubricant removes it. What separated a quiet house from a loud one was simply the willingness to apply it. That hinge did not need a handyman. It needed a knowledgeable hand. Number 21, recaulking a tub joint with oakum and linseed compound. You raked out the failed caulk, cleaned the seam with rubbing alcohol, packed twisted oakum rope into the gap, and tooled linseed oil putty smooth with a wet finger. A failed tub joint invites water behind tile. Water behind tile rots the subfloor. Every father who understood that connection acted in October, before the first winter shower. The gap was small. What grew in it was not. In 2023, the home repair industry in the United States generated over $600 billion annually. In 1953, the average American household spent nearly nothing on professional home repair. Not because nothing broke, but because the man inside fixed it. A 2022 survey found fewer than 20% of homeowners felt confident making basic plumbing repairs. In 1955, that number was closer to 80%. The knowledge did not disappear on its own. An economy was built on replacing it with a service call. Your grandfather's hands were worth more than any maintenance plan ever printed. That is exactly why no one taught you what he knew. Number 20, waterproofing boots with beeswax. You warmed the leather near the wood stove, worked solid beeswax into every seam with your fingertips until it would take no more, and buffed it smooth. For a working man in 1951 whose single pair of boots had to last 3 years, a sealed seam was the difference between dry feet and 3 winters of suffering. One treatment, no bill. The boot did not need replacing. It needed maintaining. Number 19, rehanging a sagging gate with turnbuckle and wire. You ran a diagonal wire from the top corner of the latch side to the bottom corner of the hinge side, threaded it through a turnbuckle, and tightened it until the gate came square. A sagging gate is a diagonal force problem. A diagonal wire provides the counterforce. $2 of hardware, 40 minutes of work. He did not replace the gate. He understood why it sagged. Number 18, patching a concrete crack with hydraulic cement. You undercut the crack with a chisel, wider at the base so the patch would lock in, mixed hydraulic cement to a stiff paste, pressed it in, and held pressure 3 minutes while it hardened. Hydraulic cement sets under moisture. It locks inside the crack itself. Materials ran under $5. The wall was not failing. It had a crack. Those are different problems. Number 17, fixing a sticky window with a paraffin candle. You ran a plain white candle firmly along both sides of the sash channel until the wax seated into the wood grain. The window slid smooth. Wood swells with summer humidity and binds in the channel. That is the entire problem. Paraffin removes that friction in 30 seconds at zero cost. The window was not broken. It was dry. Those are different problems. Number 16, sealing a pipe joint with hemp fiber and pipe dope. You wire brushed the male threads clean, wrapped hemp fiber clockwise in tight overlapping passes, brushed on pipe dope, and threaded the fitting home. The joint did not weep. Hemp fiber and compound remain among the most reliable thread sealants ever developed. Joints made this way in the 1950s outlast modern press-fit connections by decades. He sealed the joint and never thought about it again. Number 15, sharpening a handsaw with a triangular file. You clamped the saw in a vise and filed every third tooth with 6 steady strokes, then flipped the saw and filed the alternating set. A sharp saw cuts straight and does not bind. A dull one wanders, splits wood, and exhausts the man behind it. Maintaining the edge was inseparable from owning the tool. He did not blame the saw. He sharpened it. There is a man in Harlan County, Kentucky, who is 79 years old. He can reseat a valve, repoint a brick wall, patch plaster, and diagnose a failing furnace by the sound it makes from the other room. He learned standing next to his father, who learned standing next to his. He has not been asked to teach anyone. His grandchildren call contractors. When he is gone, the instinct leaves with him, not the information, which lives in books, but the confidence that looks at a broken thing and reaches for a solution without first reaching for a phone. That confidence cannot be recovered in a weekend course. It can only be recovered by starting. Number 14, stopping a leaking shutoff valve by repacking the stem. You shut the main, unscrewed the packing nut, wound 3 wraps of graphite string clockwise around the valve stem, and replaced the nut so it was snug. No drip. A leaking valve stem is not a failed valve. The graphite packing has simply dried out and shrunk away from the stem. New packing costs 60 cents. He did not replace the valve. He replaced the string around it. Number 13, restringing a window sash weight. You removed the stop bead, pulled the sash free, tied new cotton cord to the weight through the pocket in the jamb, ran it over the pulley at the top of the frame, and tied it off at the sash horn. The window balanced again. Double-hung windows from the 1950s were built to last a century. The cord was the only part that wore. The window was not failing. The cord was. He replaced the cord. Number 12, fixing a stuck drawer with wax from a candle. You pulled the drawer out, ran a plain candle along the bottom edges and the runners inside the case, and slid it back in. Quiet and smooth. Wood drawers stick because dry surfaces create friction. Wax removes the friction in 30 seconds. Every woman in 1952 with a stuck kitchen drawer knew where the candles were kept. The drawer was not broken. It was dry. She fixed it and moved on. Number 11. Regrouting tile with a rubber float and dry mix mortar. You raked out crumbling grout, mixed dry powder to peanut butter consistency, worked it into the joints with a rubber float at 45 degrees, and wiped clean with a damp sponge in circular passes. Failed grout lets water behind tile. Water behind tile lifts the tile and rots the subfloor. Your grandfather understood those outcomes were connected. The grout failed. The tile did not have to. He knew the difference. Number 10. Weather stripping a drafty door with felt strip. You cut self-adhesive felt to length and pressed it along the doorstop on all 3 sides of the frame until the door closed against a complete seal. In a cold house, you were paying to heat air that walked straight back out through the gap. $1 of felt from the hardware store stopped it. The cold came through the gap. The felt stopped the gap. Number 9. Stopping a rocking toilet with plastic shims. You found the low corner, slid shims under the base until the toilet sat solid without movement, scored them flush, and caulked the base clean. A rocking toilet loosens its wax ring. A loose wax ring leaks sewer gas into the subfloor structure. 6 months of that ignored becomes $10,000 in remediation. He did not wait until it failed. He noticed it rocking and stopped it. Number 8. Sharpening a chisel on a whetstone. You held the bevel flat at 25 degrees and worked it in figure-8 patterns, feeling for the burr forming across the back edge. When the burr ran consistent, you moved to the fine stone, then stropped on leather. A sharp chisel requires almost no force. A dull one demands it and splits the wood instead of cutting it. He did not blame the chisel. He sharpened it. Number 7. Sealing a cracked concrete step with bonding agent and Portland cement. You chiseled all loose material away, cleaned the crack with a wire brush, painted on liquid bonding agent, and pressed a stiff mix of Portland cement and sand into the crack before the bonding agent dried. Feathered the edges and kept the patch damp for 3 days. A cracked step needs that crack sealed before water freezes inside it. The step was cracked. It was not broken. He knew which was which. Number 6. Tuck pointing failing mortar joints in a brick wall. You chiseled deteriorated mortar 3/4 of an inch deep, dampened the brick, and pressed fresh mortar in with a tuck pointer, striking it to a concave profile. Failing mortar lets water behind the brick face. In winter, that water freezes and permanently spalls the face off. A man with a tuck pointer stopped that on a Saturday. The brick was sound. The mortar was not. He fixed the mortar. Number 5. Rehanging a sagging door with one longer screw. You drove a single 3-inch wood screw through the top hole of the upper hinge until it bit past the jamb into the solid stud behind it. The door came up square. The latch lined up. A sagging door is almost never structural. It is a stripped screw hole that has been holding weight for 30 years. The door did not need planing. It needed one longer screw. Number 4. Patching a cracked cast iron drain line with a repair clamp. You cleaned the cracked section with emery cloth, centered a rubber repair sleeve over the fracture, slid a stainless steel clamp over the sleeve, and tightened the bolts until the rubber compressed fully against the pipe. The leak stopped. When a cast iron line cracks, the damage is local. A man who knew what a repair clamp was fixed the inch that cracked. The pipe did not fail. 1 inch of it cracked. He fixed that inch. Number 3, repacking a faucet stem to stop a drip at the handle. You removed the handle, unscrewed the packing nut, wound 3 wraps of graphite packing string clockwise around the stem shaft, and replaced the nut snug. No drip. Faucet stem packing is the most common faucet failure and the most frequently misdiagnosed. The graphite string around its stem has simply dried out. New packing costs under $1. He replaced the string inside the faucet, not the faucet. Number 2, replacing a toilet wax ring. You shut the supply, disconnected the supply line, unbolted the flange, and lifted the toilet. You scraped both the horn and the flange clean with a putty knife. You pressed a new wax ring onto the horn and lowered the toilet straight onto the bolts with firm pressure until the wax seated fully. No leak, no rock. A wax ring costs $4. The toilet was not broken. The seal under it was. He replaced the seal. Number 1, looking at the broken thing before calling anyone. That is the whole list. Every repair from number 30 to number 2 began with one act. A man walked to the broken thing, crouched down if he had to, and looked at it. He touched it. He moved the parts. He found what was loose, what was worn, what had shifted, and most of the time, what he found was small, a loose screw, a dry seal, a gap that needed filling. The fix took less time than finding the phone number, but it required one thing that no service contract replaces: the belief that you are capable of understanding what went wrong. Your grandfather had that belief as his default, not because he was trained, because he had looked at broken things for 30 years and fixed them with his own hands, and the doing of it had made him certain. That certainty is still available. It cannot be purchased. It can only be built. Start looking. None of these repairs required a certification. None required a power tool, a weekend course, or anyone's permission. They required a man who paid attention to his own house, who heard the squeak and traced it, who felt the wobble and found its source, who noticed the drip and did not wait for it to become a flood. That attentiveness was once the defining feature of American fatherhood. Not wealth, not ambition, but the ability to look at something broken and know, without asking anyone, that your hands could make it right. We did not lose the tools. The tools are still in the garage. We lost the confidence that reaches for them without first asking whether we are qualified. And we lost the voice that stood beside us when we were 10 years old, patient, certain, calloused from 40 years of honest work, and said, "Watch me. I will show you once. Then you will know it for the rest of your life." That is what these 30 tricks were, not repairs, a vocabulary. And the men who spoke it could walk into any broken room and make it whole,